Hello and welcome to Face Off here on France 24. A little over 2 months to go before round one of the presidential election here in France. The favorite, conservative François Fillon, is struggling mightily with a scandal over his hiring of his wife and children as parliamentary aides. And he is now surpassed in opinion polls by both the far-right leader Marine Le Pen and the centrist newcomer Emmanuel Macron. And as Fillon battles to keep his run alive, he's also warning that if he's forced out of the race, many of his sympathisers would throw their support behind Le Pen and give her the keys to the Élysée, the presidential palace. With me to discuss this wide-open presidential election, Jean-Marc Gonin with the Figaro magazine and Philippe Turle with Radio France Internationale. The polls are what everybody has been watching here in France, and this is one of the latest polls taken just a couple of days ago. It shows that in the first round, Marine Le Pen would arrive first with some 26% of voting intentions, ahead of Emmanuel Macron, who was a former Minister of Economy under François Hollande and who's running as an independent, 22%, slightly ahead of François Fillon, the conservative candidate, 21%. The socialist candidate, Benoît Hamon, would arrive then with 15%. The far-left candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, with 11%. Since only the two first ones qualified for round two, Emmanuel Macron would face off against Marine Le Pen, and he would win handily 63% versus 37%. Jean-Marc Gonin, the polls have shown more or less the same thing. Essentially, Marine Le Pen ahead, a few points ahead of Emmanuel Macron, who's now ahead, very slightly, one might say, of François Fillon.
Yes, those polls are very interesting, but there is a data that lies behind that is even more interesting. Marine Le Pen is heading the race, but you see, when you ask people if they are sure of their vote, she has a very, very strong base of voters who are already decided to vote for her, whatever happens. About 90% of people who say they are ready to vote have made up their mind and they won't change it. Fillon has around 70% of that safety rate, and Macron is pretty low. He's still a very fragile candidate in the sense that around 40% of the people are sure to vote for him, which is a big difference with the two main contenders, the other two main contenders.
Right. As Jean-Marc was saying, Marine Le Pen has a solid base of support around 25%. The problem is for her, and has been in local elections and so on, to really go the next step. And there's clearly a glass ceiling. All the polls are showing that she would be defeated against François Fillon or Emmanuel Macron with a fairly sizable margin.
Well, what you see systematically in France concerning the far-right National Front is that whereas other parties can strike up alliances between each other, especially on the left, even at the moment we're talking about an alliance between the Greens and the Socialists to try to increase their support base, the National Front always finds itself completely isolated. And Marine Le Pen knows that even though she's going to probably come first in the first round of voting, she will not win the presidential election because of that problem that she has always faced, and the party has always faced, even under her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, before her. That is that there is no support base after that with people striking alliances up with the National Front. So what they're attempting to do now, and what she's attempting to do, when you listen to what she says in her campaign rallies, she's appealing to other members of other parties to come and join with her, saying, I want the patriots from the other parties to join with us. If I win the election, I'm going to name a prime minister from another party, but not from in the National Front, to try and widen out her support base. For the moment, nobody has come forward to say, yes, I'm going to join forces with Marine Le Pen.
Let's take a listen to Marine Le Pen expressing her confidence that something is afoot during this election after the Brexit, after Trump. Why not Marine Le Pen? Let's take a listen to the leader of the National Front.
This awakening of people is historic. It marks the end of a cycle. The tide of history has turned. It will take us to the summit, and with us, our country, France. Long live the French people, long live the Republic, long live France.
So clearly, very confident Marine Le Pen. There's also another factor that could play in her favor, which I mentioned earlier. It's the scandal engulfing François Fillon. He was the clear favorite to win, and he is warning that if he's not allowed to run because of an investigation into the so-called Penelopegate, Penelope being his wife, who, according to some reports, held a fictitious job as his parliamentary aide. He's warning that if he's not allowed to run, people who would have voted for him might go to Marine Le Pen.
Do you think Macron will win against Marine Le Pen if I cannot run for president? Of course not. My voters will turn to Marine Le Pen. There's tremendous anger among the right-wing electorates, which would end up being deprived of its candidate.
Jean-Marc Gonin, is this just a mere tactical move to try to save his candidacy, or is he right? Could there be a move from people who say, well, there's no one on the conservative side, I might as well stay home or vote for Marine Le Pen?
I think it might be still very marginal. So it's mostly tactical what he's saying there. But a part of his electorate will probably turn to Marine Le Pen, but that won't decide the race. I mean, the gap, as Philippe was mentioning, is much too big. But there's another factor that could help Marine Le Pen that we shouldn't forget. It is presently what's happening in the Paris suburbs, the riots. She has been calculating on it. Our last speeches were directed at the crowd, at the people who were really shocked by those riots and cars burning, public offices being destroyed, etc. This plays for her, and she's trying that. And another factor that might help her is terrorism. Terrorism is looming in this country. I mean, every day you learn that some attack was stopped by the police. So if anything happens, that could boost her candidacy.
Right. In addition to, yes, we're seeing those incidents in several Paris suburbs after a tragic arrest by the police of a teenager who was apparently raped by the police. But in addition to this, do you think that if there is no conservative candidate, some people might decide actually to sit out the election and, as a result, really give a boost to Marine Le Pen that the polls are not measuring right now?
Let's put it this way around. People used to say to me, do you think Marine Le Pen has a chance of winning the election? And
you were saying no.
I always said, no way will she win. And now I'm not so sure anymore. I don't think she'll win, but it's not impossible. As you say, François Fillon, the Conservative Party candidate, has a lot of trouble hanging over him and may be forced to withdraw his candidacy. He said that he's not going to. He's going to go right to the end. But his party might have to execute him because they know that they're not going to win this election if François Fillon remains the candidate, because he's losing support left, right and centre over the suspicion that he employed his wife as his parliamentary attaché. So that is already undermining support, which might send some supporters towards Marine Le Pen. On the left, there is a virtual impossibility the left will come together. If the left did come together, then they would win this election. But it's virtually impossible for the left to do that because you have, on the far left, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is refusing to strike up an agreement with the Socialist Party candidate. He basically wants the Socialist Party to disappear. And then you have the Socialist candidate who is maybe striking up a deal with the Greens, but that will not be enough to win the election. So you need all those three together, which is virtually impossible to agree upon at the moment. So that opens this boulevard for Marine Le Pen, which just leaves in the way Emmanuel Macron. And Emmanuel Macron, as Jean-Marc was saying, has a very fragile candidacy, and a lot of people who said they might vote for him, there again, they might not. And so maybe even 50% of the people who say they might vote for him might eventually change their minds and go and vote for Marine Le Pen.
Okay, let's maybe do just some fiction there. François Fillon cannot run. There's no plan B. There's no conservative candidate. Emmanuel Macron, people decide that, well, you know, he's not really the real deal. Let's say the socialist candidate, Benoît Hamon, totally unexpectedly makes it to the second round against Marine Le Pen. In this case, which is improbable, but not totally impossible, don't you think Marine Le Pen has a real shot at the presidency?
Well, there are a lot of ifs there.
Yes.
But she definitely has a shot if she's opposed to Hamon, because Hamon is a very left candidate for the mainstream public in France. He has proposals that are a bit fictional about revenue for everybody out of the budgets, things that are really mind blowing. The costs are mind blowing. So that won't do the trick. And there she might break the glass ceiling for once.
You agree with that?
I do agree, and I think also the costs that she's invoking in her presidential campaign are also completely out of control.
As you know, it doesn't count.
But it
It's
doesn't
a magic
really count.
thought in France for her.
She could do it. I don't think at the moment she will, even if she's opposite Benoît Hamon. We had this situation in 2002 with Jacques Chirac against Marine Le Pen, her father. Jacques Chirac won 82% of the vote.
But it was 15 years ago, Philippe.
15 years ago. This time round, I still think Marine Le Pen would lose, but the margin of her loss will be a lot less than 82% to 18% that was happened there. I think we'd be much closer to 60-40.
Okay, we'll obviously be following very closely this presidential race here on France 24, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Face Off.
People and Profit, presented by Stephen Carroll.
Business news is not about numbers, nor percentages and statistics. Business news is about people and how we live our lives. People and Profit goes beyond numbers to analyse how the global flow of money and profits shape our world. Intelligent and accessible, the show cuts across business, economics and politics.
People and Profit, on France 24 and France 24.